interviewing a new person each day from Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And my guest today, right now, is Colleen Creighton, who's the Executive Director of the American Association of Suicidology. Less than a year on the job.
This is my first Facebook Live ever, so I appreciate this, and I'm excited to kind of talk to everybody about AAS. We're a 50-year-old organization. I've joined, like you said, less than a year ago, just in July. So it's brand new. This is my first time meeting so many of our members. We have a lot of great things planned because we brought the board here. We kind of said, where are we taking the organization? So we have some new energy, and we're excited to kind of use the momentum coming out of here to do great stuff.
One of the things I wanted to set out to do doing these interviews is first off, I wanted to interview you, but I also want to interview a clinician like Dr. April Foreman. I wanted to interview a loss survivor like Sally Spencer Thomas, and an attempt survivor, Desiree L. Stage. So, and of course, I will be talking with Sarah Schuster, the mental health editor at The Mighty, on Saturday, and we'll be doing the Mighty Takeaway. The more branding, the better. I appreciate you being so accessible and willing to talk and roll with the punches and try this new platform. This is your first Facebook Live.
Ever.
Yes.
Awesome.
But the great thing about AAS is how social media savvy we all are. So we're gonna convert you. Okay. This will not be the last Facebook Live you do.
Oh, should I be worried? I
no,
don't know.
I just feel like this is all my family, and like everyone's so like we all know each other.
That's what I've heard. I've heard it's just a family when you get there, and it's awesome. So I'm excited to be here and experience this.
You're definitely very much part of the family.
But come up and stop and talk to me. I'm approachable, I think.
I would say so.
Okay, so definitely come up and talk to me. Tell me what you want from your membership. I really want to get you guys engaged.
Well, thank you so much, Colleen. There's a bit of a ruckus because our next guest, Dr. April Foreman, is coming on in.
See, I don't know. She's always a troublemaker.
Great.
A troublemaker. But no,
we're live. We're live, Doc.
I'm so sorry. I just thought you were talking as friends.
No, it's good. No, you guys are in for a good show.
Yeah. So thanks again.
Really,
I appreciate that.
No, that was a thing. That was a thing that Rudy's famous for.
And guess what I have, Doc?
Poop Illuminati.
Yeah. The mighty audience is probably like, what is going on right now?
So
I came for suicide prevention tips, and now you're talking about poop emoji.
So, which totally makes sense.
One of our most popular commenters, Sarah Schuster. I don't know if you.
I have been drunk with Sarah Schuster, and she's so hot.
This is a family program, Doc. Okay. Sarah's mom watches this.
I was the only one that was intoxicated.
All right. So let's talk about suicide prevention.
So totally. So the poop Illuminati. So here's the thing.
I don't.
Like, so are we focused? How do we
focus?
We did things right to focus.
Sorry.
This is how I look in real life.
This is a good Instagram filter.
Totally. I get it at Sephora. You are practically a Kardashian. You know, I think that increasingly people are going to use social media and digital platforms to connect with communities that they identify with. And what I hope is, much like in-person communities where we build infrastructure for mental health crisis, what I hope is that we start to have standards and practices to allow us to build supportive mental health services, crisis, and options for people. Just like we try so that your friend is more prepared to help you if you're in a suicidal crisis, the police are more prepared, then also people who are social media influencers, people who are managing social media communities, and your peers and social, so that the more people who are able to help and the more that the technology builds and assists, many people are altruistic, will help and do the right things and help people get support. And that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that we're moving to a place where people who are very active in social media and platforms realize it's an important function and build in those supports and those safeties.
Will there ever be a SPSM chat on CompuServe?
What? That is the craziest question ever. CompuServe.
We're all about making it easier for you to consume content. So
thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. And
hashtag Lick Rudy Caceres. You guys, we will do our best to stream stuff with you so that you can see more of these great people.
Great. Take care, mighty audience. See you tomorrow.
Bye.
My guest, Dr. Sally Spencer Thomas, who is just has more titles than I can imagine. She's doing such great work in suicide prevention, mental health, traveling all over the world, sharing her story, spreading influence and resiliency. And she also has lived experience as a loss survivor. Let the whole mighty audience know, who is Dr. Sally Spencer Thomas?
I'm a mother of 3 boys. I'm a dog lover. I'm a runner. And I'm also, I've dedicated my life to preventing suicide and also helping people through suicide, grief, and loss. It is absolutely unfathomable that people are dying in isolation and despair every day. And we are here at the American Association of Suicidology Conference to learn how to stop that kind of suffering.
This is only my 2nd year, so I'm still a little baby, but I'm really thankful that all of you have embraced me and welcomed me and really made me part of the AAS family. So thank you for that. And so I'm trying to learn as much as I can as possible. And one of the people that I've learned so much from is you, Dr. Sally.
So what people actually probably don't know about me is I was involved to some degree in suicide topics before my brother died of suicide. So I'm a psychologist by training. So obviously I had some training and some background, and I actually actively sought to do kind of above and beyond learning around suicide because I didn't feel that what I was getting was enough. So I went to my very first conference ever was a suicide conference. I can't even say it was suicide prevention back in the day because we didn't really talk much about prevention. It was more just like suicidology, the study of suicide. And then my very first large research project in the late 90s was to study law enforcement's response to civilian suicide. So I had dabbled in it. But then obviously when my brother died in 2004, it became incredibly personal. And I'm sitting in this support group for people who had lost a loved one to suicide. And it wasn't any kind of particularly special night. It was just like a regular support group night. And I just had this, like, I would say like a spiritual sense, like, oh, this is why I'm here on this planet.
Why are you so passionate about people's lived experience and having them share their own stories?
Well, going back to that very first experience in 2007, when I first came, as an outsider looking in, I said, well, where I see the researchers, I see the clinicians, I see the loss survivors, I see the advocates. I don't see people talking about their own experiences with this, and where are they? And what I heard back then, over 10 years ago was, well, they won't get along with the loss survivors. That was one thing. Or, this isn't really, a recovery conference. So I'm not sure that they'd be interested in coming. And, those kinds of excuses fell flat for me. People listening, the general public, their hearts aren't moved. Their feet aren't moved to action by research alone. It's up here where we get the hope and the inspiration that there is something else on the other side of despair, that these are transformative moments where people can actually grow through. It's from people who've lived through it. Wait, you put loss survivors and attempt survivors in the same room together, and that works. And I'm like, yeah, actually, many people wear multiple hats around this, loss survivors and attempt survivors and people living with thoughts and feelings. And there's so much that we can learn from each other. And when we're together, we're better. One of the things I get out of this is the love that's here. And it's a renewing kind of centeredness that I come out of going, oh yeah, this is why I do what I do. And the 2 things that I'm trying to get across through these talks is, one, we need new and needed voices in our conversation. I think we're often stuck where we are because all we do is talk to ourselves. The researchers talk to one another and the clinicians talk to one another, and we don't realize like there's this whole other world out there that's totally missing the boat of our conversations. And when it comes to stories about suicide, we have to be on our game. Yeah, because there's definitely ways we can tell them that can be damaging to ourselves and to other people. And there's ways that we can deliver them that can create miracles. And one of the common themes I hear is, yes, for many, treatment is life-saving. Medication can be life-saving. But the part that brings them not just to baseline, but into thriving is what you're doing here. Becoming involved in some way, making meaning out of that history to help others, and then connecting with peers.
This is the great thing about these Facebook Lives at AAS, is that you never know who's going to come on next. So surprise, surprise, try to get as close as you can. Don't be shy. This is Kate Hardy, and you probably can tell a little bit about yourself more than I can. So
Yeah, I know
feel
me
free.
pretty well.
And we're live, so I can't censor you if you start swearing. So
Yes.
how did you come up with the name Suck It Suicide?
I'm basically 12.
Okay. As you can tell by the hair.
Yeah, I'm a child. I was just naming the fundraiser, and I didn't want to put a curse word on the flyer, so I just was like, fuck it. And sorry. So instead, I said, suck it, suicide. So kind of like in your face, like, suck it. What would you say? Suck it.
I would say suck it.
This isn't something that you prep for. It's not, and most of the people that I know, because I lost my mom in 2003, and we were able to pay for her funeral. She died by suicide. But I've lost 7 friends since then. Luckily, that hasn't gone up in the past year or 2, so I'm feeling pretty lucky about it. But I raised money for 6 out of those 7 friends' funerals or cleanup or whatever their family. Like, we raised money for one of the friends' grandparents because she couldn't afford to live without her grandson. It's not something that you prep for, but it's also incredibly unfair.
Yeah.
You know, you're already going through a different kind of grief. You already are going to have different feelings of blame. And I mean, it can tear apart an entire community. And then when you put on top of it the financial aspect, why?
Yeah.
Why do that? Why not just let people focus on what the important part is, which is coming together as a community and healing?
Yeah.
And take away that extra barrier.
You won an award last year too, right?
I did. I was the Lost Survivor of the Year.
Yeah.
It was an award. And then I on the Instagram, I had my award doing multiple things like drinking a Starbucks Americano and doing a tattoo because it's a piece of thing. It looks great on a resume. And I was like, thank you. But other than that, like, what does it do?
We weren't planning this at all, and I'm glad that I was able to pluck you from the corner over there. And so thank you, Kate Hardy.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. And go check out Suck It Suicide. Go check out, make sure you type that in right too. But go check out 6 Feet Over. And anything else? Last words before we call this a day?
Thanks for paying attention to this.
My guest today, Desiree L. Stage, creator of Live Through This, and just all around badass. So for the people who do not know who you are, first off, shame on you.
Oh.
Secondly,
Don't shame them.
who is Desiree L. Stage?
Wow. You are intense right now.
So first off, I'm a big fan. I even have the official swag on.
Woo!
Yes, because thanks to you.
You look
Okay.
good.
I stay.
I'm just
Cool.
wearing a black shirt.
Cool. You want to show off the other t-shirt, Sarah?
Oh,
Cool.
yeah.
I know. She can't resist the camera. Cool. Tell us about this shirt, Sarah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You gonna tell us about it?
And why are other people getting it wrong when it comes to reaching out to the lived experience community?
He's asking the hard questions. They're getting it wrong because they're not doing it.
So you've been doing a lot of stuff. You're known as kind of a rabble rouser here.
Mhm.
And first off, how did you get involved with AAS? Why are you still involved with AAS? And what are some of the frustrations that you're having? And what are some of the things that you've noticed as achievements within the time that you've been involved?
You ask too many questions. I'm never gonna be able to remember all that. You gotta go one by one, man. I was really scared because I knew this conference was mainly academic, lots of research, and I didn't have blue hair then, but I'm covered in tattoos, and and I'm an attempt survivor, touting my attempt survivor propaganda, and I was just scared. I was like, I'm not going to fit in here, and it turned out that there's a really great progressive community within the organization that kind of brought me in, and that's why I stay. Honestly, there are so many of us doing good work. And also so many of the people in the organization really need to hear what we have to say because they're stuck in the past, and I'm sick of being a dancing monkey for research that we're not involved in. How can you do research on suicide without asking people who have been there? It doesn't make sense. So the problem we have is that we're very passionate.
Yeah.
It's a gift and a curse, and if you can't put boundaries on that passion where you're giving yourself the oxygen mask first, then you will suffer burnout and it will be bad. And so we we really need to be talking about that more, how we can take care of ourselves, because we all need to be here.
Yeah.
Like, we need to be doing this work. There are too many people who don't fucking get it. Okay, well, you're doing these cool interventions, but what about the people you're doing them on?
Yeah.
You know, what about us? Our quality of life is more important. If we have quality of life, then we're not going to kill ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's what you're trying to avoid.
I would hope so.
They forget about us in the middle of it sometimes. It's pretty weird.
Now, how does that affect you when you see other suicide prevention advocates burn out or even die by suicide? Do you think that contributes to the stigma, that people with lived experience can only go so far as advocates before they do burn out?
I do think it contributes to the stigma, but not on our end. That's not our bad. You know, like I said, that's not our failure. We're living lives, and life is hard, and sometimes despair gets you, and there's nothing that we can, there are things we can do about it, but sometimes in that moment, there's nothing a person can do. And if they're alone and there's not someone there to grab them, then we lose them sometimes. People who are continuing to keep these ideas about us, that's the old white men who've been running this shit for far too long, and they're gonna die soon. So yeah, we just keep doing it, and eventually they're gonna come over to our side, or they're gonna die, and bye. No,
Yeah.
I'm being mean, but we need to be pushing back, and we are, and this amount of pushback was not happening in the past. So we just keep going, and it's fine. And if they want to feel that way about us, then fuck them. I don't often share my views on suicide, but I think we should have autonomy over our bodies. I don't want people to take their lives, but if you've been struggling for, you know, I've known people who've died by suicide who were struggling for decades, and they did everything. You know, they've sought the supports, they sought the treatment, and it just didn't work, and they continued to despair. So when they did take their lives, it's like, we failed you. Like, you can't be angry at people for that. And a lot of my tweets yesterday during the physician aid in dying debate were, why aren't we talking about lived experience? Why aren't we talking about possibly extending this option to people who have been struggling forever? You know, they say, oh, well, anyone with a psychological history, a psychiatric history is not, can't have this option. And I think, I mean, I don't know what the logistics are yet. I've been doing this thought experiment for years, but why can't we have that option? You know, at some certain point in our life, why can't we choose to have a good death, whatever a good death is for us, instead of, you know, often suicide is violent, and you're alone, and you're scared, and you're sad. And if one of the people who was in their 50s who I know who died by suicide, what if they'd had the option to say, okay, well, I think it's my time, and I want to have my family around? Like, it could be so different for us, and I think even having that option might reduce the rates, honestly.
Do you think it's ever necessary to use forced psychiatric treatment? Or
Fuck no. I mean, maybe somebody with a gun, like the gun needs to be removed if they're, no, I don't know, it's hard. You don't want people to die, you want to save them, but we also don't want to force people to live just because that's how we feel. You know, like a lot of my criticism of suicide prevention specifically is like, okay, well, you want to prevent the suicides, good, but how are you going to support our quality of life? Because we don't have access to treatments a lot, and then sometimes the treatments don't work, and people are forced to take meds, and meds that don't work for them. Like, I have friends who've been zombies because of their meds, and what the fuck good is that doing us? It doesn't make you feel better. That doesn't make you struggle any less. You can't go to work, can't sleep, can't have friendships, that's not a life that anyone should live. So no, I don't. And on top of the things you've talked about, the forced catheterization and the restraints, that is actual torture. That shouldn't be legal. If you're gonna take everything that makes me comfortable and that makes me feel safe away, I'm gonna be worse.
Yeah.
Like, being hospitalized is not gonna fucking help me. Being around people who love me and who support me, that's what's gonna help me. So we need to work on asking the people who are affected what's going to help them.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes people are so fucked up from their psych meds that they're not okay. And I don't know exactly what the best answer is there for them, because there's a, you know, I don't know what the answer is, but I think that is awful. I do know people who felt that their hospitalization was useful, but you know, that's, truthfully, they got lucky. They probably had compassionate caregivers, and that's not the norm. I think there's still that attitude of, oh, these people are lesser, they're crazy, they can't be trusted, they're gonna burn out if we do trust them. All kinds of stuff. And even, that's even the same with the physician aid in dying. Oh, they can't be trusted to make their own decisions about death. And I'm like, well, you let me fucking tie my shoes every day. Why can't I make decisions about my life? I pay my bills just fine. I had a baby. Like, I can do life great, just like anybody else. What is this? A lot of future clinicians are being taught by these weird old traditionalists who don't know what they're doing, haven't considered people with lived experience in the past, and they all need to go. However they go, they need to exit. If you need to indulge in some ice cream for dinner, then do that if it's going to make you feel good. So that's
Some Cherry Garcia.
yeah. Well, I like the monkey one, the banana one.
If anyone is in the
Chunky
comments
monkey.
and has any recommendations for Ben and Jerry's, now
This became a Ben & Jerry's commercial.
Yeah.
You know, I'm known here for being a lived experience person. You know, it's like I'm waving my flag, and sometimes, especially the older people, the more traditional people who kind of look down on us still, and we're fighting, that's all they see me as. Yeah, I find that problematic because, like I said, I am a loss survivor. I lost one of my very close friends to suicide. I've lost more people, and since I've been doing the project in the past couple of years, I've lost 2 people who have been in the project, and that cuts deep. You know, I mean, that's when I interview people for the project, they're my family. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, those aren't conversations. You're not talking about the weather. You're talking about the hardest parts of people's lives, and they're sharing that with you, and that's a real gift. So when you lose them, it's terrible. So I'm a loss survivor. I've seen the immediate aftermath of suicides, a suicide, not multiple. That way I can't. So no, I don't want to be pigeonholed. I have there's a lot of identity around suicide in my life. And also, you know, now I'm a mom, and
yeah.
I do other things. I write, and I have amazing friends, and so it's like I care deeply about suicide, and so I think about 90% of the time and how I can change things. But that's not all I am.
Thank you again, Desiree L. Stage,
Yelling. He's yelling. Why are you yelling?
creator of Live Through This, mother, my friend.
Yeah, you're okay.
Yes, overall great person. Have a great day, everyone. Tomorrow, we'll be having our mighty takeaway with mental health editor, Sarah Schuster.
She's all right.
Okay, well, I'm glad you ended there. What better way to end our stay at the American Association of Suicidology Conference than finally getting to interview Sarah Schuster, the mental health editor at the Mighty. Now, I knew that if I interviewed Sarah, I couldn't top that. I might as well stop interviewing. And so I finally have her on. This might be the last Facebook Live.
We might have to stop Facebook Lives after this.
Yeah, we're about to break Facebook Live right now. Tell the whole world, in case they don't know, who is Sarah Schuster.
Oh God. Hi, everyone. I'm the mental health editor at The Mighty, which is the Facebook page you must like if you're watching this. I pretty much manage the contributor section. You might see me writing some news. We also do just content. I think perhaps in the past we've focused a lot on preventing crises, right?
Yeah.
I think a takeaway that I've had from this conference is that when you think of suicide prevention, you think of how to stop suicidal people from killing themselves, right?
Yeah.
That's what you think. You think, okay, suicide prevention is that there are people who are suicidal. How do we keep them alive? And sometimes, how do we keep them alive at any means necessary? It's not just about keeping people alive, or I believe that that suicide prevention isn't just about keeping people alive. it's about improving their quality of life. So hopefully less people get to that point in the first place. And then when they do, right, because it's okay to like have that intensity where you feel like you want to die. That's okay. How do we help them in compassionate ways that the main objective isn't just keeping people alive, but the main objective is to keep them feeling like they want to live.
I definitely learned a lot, especially through these Facebook Live interviews. I made an effort to, first off, interview the executive director, Colleen Creighton, but I also wanted to interview a clinician, a loss survivor, and a TEMP survivor.
That's always
And
how it should
then,
be.
yeah, and of course there's some overlap in there. TEMP survivors can also be loss survivors. Clinicians can also be TEMP survivors. And I love how people are more open about that. One of the cool things about doing these Facebook Lives that you never know who's going to show up. Are you able to?
Yeah, I can switch over.
Yeah. And this is Elise Wariani. You might know her as one of the Mighty's mental health heroes of 2017.
Right.
And-
That's right.
And this is actually your first AAS.
There's so much life here, which is like amazing when we're, talking about something that can be super heavy. But, it's something that's super heavy, but it's something that a lot of people deal with. And we find humor in moments, and we're able to balance, all that heaviness with good conversation and laughing and having fun. And that just like makes this whole conference amazing, because you just find so many people who you enjoy just being with.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people think suicide prevention is about death, and it is.
Mhm.
There's a lot of death, but it's about life, right?
Yeah.
It's about finding reasons to live.
Yeah.
And so it's always like funny. It's like, how could you have fun at a suicide prevention conference? Like, because a lot of the times what we're talking about is life and
Yeah.
how to want to live. And that's like kind of beautiful. I'm going to write a piece. I want to write a feature for you guys about why the suicide rate hasn't gone down.
Mhm.
Because it hasn't gone down.
It hasn't.
It hasn't gone down. The suicide rate hasn't gone down. You guys know that. You see the headlines. Suicide rate. Peaked.
Yeah.
I think it was the last one I saw was like peaked. In 30 years, it was like the highest it's been. Right.
Yeah.
So it's whatever. It varies, but it's not going down like we want it to. I think it can feel hopeless when you share the hotline, you share cool graphics that you see, you say that like you should stay, and then you look at the statistics and you're like, well, this isn't helping, is it? Or at least it's not making the impact that we want it to make. So that's what I'm gonna do.
So be on the lookout for that. You made it public, so it's out in the ether.
Now I have to do it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be like, Sarah, where's that post?
I really think highly of your work, Elise. You're a rising star. Next year, you'll probably be running this place.
I know that not everyone likes that I post and I'm open about my mental illness, and probably get annoyed with it, or probably think it's attention seeking, or whatever thoughts they have. But I know for me, like, whatever my truth is, and if I want to share that, it's my choice. And I have a lot of people who I've helped because I've shared it, or a lot of people who just are proud of me for sharing it.
Yeah.
And if, there's always going to be people who judge you for whatever you do. And it's hard to be okay with that, but it's like something I continuously am working on, of trying to just remind myself that like, that doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. I have people who support me, and, we always are going to have people who like us and people who don't.
You always so excited to come here, the American Association of Suicidology Conference. It doesn't feel like work, and even though I'm so drained right now, which is why I have no energy in my voice, I'm glad I came.
I can't tell.
One question I wanted to ask you, Sarah, do you consider yourself, with any of the work that you do, a suicide prevention advocate?
That's a great question. And it's so funny. I think that I have a hard time claiming myself to be like anything. Like, I don't even really self-identify as a mental health advocate, which is like hilarious because that's what I do every day is stuff for mental health. But for me, it's like the word advocate, I assume you have to be like marching to Washington like every day and knocking on senators' doors and being like, stop suicide, you know? And I think I feel like self-conscious claiming that title. But yeah, I think, here's what I'll say. I don't feel comfortable saying I'm a suicide prevention advocate, but I think that like everyone who works in the mental health space, like we're advocates for people living better lives. Someone else said this first, that like we're not going to stop people from feeling suicidal, right?
Yeah.
And how the point actually shouldn't be to take away someone's right to like feel, because it's just like it's this intensity. You're not gonna like make like that necessarily go away, like that part of human nature that like we want to completely destruct ourselves because of what we're feeling, you know?
Yeah.
We're not gonna make that go away, but we can make people's options better when they feel that way.
Yeah.
So they don't ultimately end up dead.
It's like, why make someone have to go all the way down, and then try to bring them back up?
And then the help maybe isn't that great.
Yeah, but like it's like we don't even like. Yeah, it's just weird. Like we're like, oh, you have to hit rock bottom, and then we'll come and try to lift you up. And it's like now I'm so much further than where I was when I came to you.
I will say to that the Mighty and sharing people's stories and making them feel like a community, that does help. And when we share our stories, there's a lot of healing in that. There's a lot of strength in that. So
Yeah, I would
even
hope
though
so.
like you can't point to some,
This is a Mighty contributor.
yeah,
You can find Krista T, right? That's your name right now?
Marie.
yeah.
Oh my God,
It's
Krista Marie.
changing.
Sorry,
Just-
Krista Marie.
yeah.
It's changed like how many
Just
times
know
now?
you can be from a contributor before you
I
know
don't
it.
even know,
You're doing a
honestly.
Facebook Live interview in DC.
The highest percentage of suicides happen in men between the ages of like what? It's like 45 and it's like 45 and
It's like
60
middle
or
age.
something. Also, rural communities, you know,
Yeah.
also have really high rates, right? So your like hashtag, as much as it's helping people who are already engaged, it's really good to have reminders, aren't reaching those people. They're not. They see more attention put to people who are actually doing outreach in a more active way, targeting populations that we know aren't going to see the hashtags, aren't going to be liking the Mighty, right? I think about that all the time about how like there are people who like, because of the place that they're in, like won't like a mental health page.
Yeah,
And so it's not helping that. When we're thinking about suicide prevention, thinking about our reach and thinking about who we're talking to and making sure that we're not forgetting people who aren't going to be engaged on social media
Yeah.
/ aren't going to be following suicide prevention things, because like, why would you do that if like, you know, I don't know. Not everyone's into that.
would you mind introducing yourself and
I mean,
how the
Sarah
Mighty,
already
what the
kind of-
Mighty means to you?
Oh goodness. But I've been writing for the Mighty for about 2.5 years. I've got 30 some articles. I'll put a link afterwards someplace.
There you go.
Put in the comments.
Later, whatever. I don't care. I've got 30 some articles, and some of them are chronic illness, but a lot of them are mental health. And I found that it was such a place of support and such a good outlet for me when I needed to get that out. I needed some way to express how I was feeling, but I didn't have anybody necessarily that I knew in person that I felt comfortable doing that with. And I grew up in an environment where I was 16 when I had my suicide attempts. And so I was in an environment at the time that was not at all supportive of my family. And so I didn't really get encouraged from them to be able to reach out to people. So the few people that I had that I was reaching out to, I was often told like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. No. And sometimes I was told that with my writing, but I just didn't care, to be completely honest. And it was also one thing that I found, like, again, 30 some articles, hey, I'm actually good at something. And when my self-esteem was pretty much non-existent, that was such a huge thing for me. So, and also I got to know people like Sarah
Yeah.
and her amazingness.
I think the expectation people have sometimes is that like, I'm going to make these feelings go away.
Yeah.
No, that is not how that works.
And
I wish.
and that's scary. That's scary though, right? Like you think like, why am I in recovery? I'm to make the bad feelings go away, right?
Yeah. And
And
I
I-
still feel that way sometimes.
Totally.
Like it's hard
I don't
to
wanna
not
feel like
just
this.
want to be like,
Who wants to feel like that, you know?
Goodbye.
How can you help?
validation
You can-
is huge. Just saying.
Yeah.
So there's two ways you can help. You can help by looking at the people in your life and making sure you know how to validate their feelings. Just kind of like being like a supportive person helps with suicide prevention,
Just be a
right?
decent human being.
You
really.
don't have to run a campaign to be a suicide prevention. Again, like we try to do suicide prevention, right? You're really a quality of life advocate. So if you're there for the people in your life, that's kind of like a way to be helpful. And then I guess on a bigger scale, do what you can.
Like, it's really not as complicated as it seems at
Yeah.
first, because it's a heavy topic, but it's really, in a lot of ways, a lot simpler than people realize to be helpful and be there for somebody when
Yeah.
they're struggling.
And you're not a bad person for having suicidal thoughts.
That's so important.
Thank you.
It's so
Thank you. a
important.
million
You're
times.
not
Thank
a bad person for having suicidal thoughts.
Yeah.
You.
You're
Just
not a
run
bad
around
person.
chanting that, please.
And it's okay if they never go away. There's a lot of pressure of that, of being fully
Yes.
recovered.
All right, that's my validation dance.
Cool.
I'm like,
Yes.
All
it
right.
no,
really
that's
is your
yeah. So
validation.
you're not a bad person for having suicidal thoughts.
All right.
What Rudy said. That's how we'll end. We don't support racial discrimination.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Full disclosure, Sarah is one of my best friends, and she's an all-around person. And I just want to say to you, you are great. You are great.
Yes, yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Cool. All right. It's been a great week. We've had some great guests, but now it's time to go. And I appreciate all the love we've had. All the comments, all the great people. I know it's kind of hard to keep up with all the Facebook Lives we've been doing, but these will always be able to watch at any time. So go check them out. It's totally fine. There's plenty of great content out there.
Content.
Have a great week, everyone. Enjoy your weekend. Cool. All right.
Bye, guys.
Stay mighty.